Rain lashed against the rocky ridge as Lieutenant Mara Voss crouched behind a jagged boulder, her radio headset pressed tightly against her ears. The winds were howling, carrying smoke and the distant roar of explosions from the valley below. Her squad had been deployed hours ago to hold the ridge and coordinate air support for the beleaguered platoon trapped in the canyon. While everyone else had shouted, barked orders, or cursed at the chaos around them, Mara's voice had always been quieter, calm, methodical, almost unassuming. Today, that quiet would be her weapon. Her eyes scanned the battlefield below. The enemy had set up fortified positions along the canyon's edges, and every movement Mara's squad made was being observed, calculated, and targeted. Shells were already landing in the distance, kicking up showers of debris, and a column of smoke marked where one of their armored vehicles had been destroyed. Mara's radio crackled with frantic voices. "Lieutenant Voss, we're pinned down. We need fire support now." She swallowed hard, steadying her hands. Her squad's survival depended on her next words. Mara's calm, deliberate tone contrasted sharply with the panic around her. She keyed the mic. "Alpha 1, Grid Foxtrot 9er. Confirm, enemy bunkers on ridge and canyon edge. Request immediate strike." There was a pause on the other end. Then an unfamiliar voice barked back, clipped and professional. "Copy, Lieutenant. Coordinates received. Strike in 3 minutes." 3 minutes. Mara could feel the weight of the lives below pressing against her chest. She moved slightly, checking each of her squad members' positions. Private Jensen's leg had been grazed by a sniper round, his face pale but determined. Sergeant Lin covered the flank, eyes scanning for enemy snipers. Every soldier's focus was on her, the quiet one who had always seemed small in presence but immense in resolve. Mara remembered the days before deployment when others had laughed at her reserved nature. She'd been told that her quiet voice wouldn't command, wouldn't inspire. And yet, here she was, the one the squad relied upon to call in the thunder. She adjusted her position, brushing mud from her sleeves. The ridge below offered no cover, but it was the only vantage point to get a clear line for the strike coordinates. Mara gritted her teeth, praying her calculations were precise. One wrong call, and not just her squad, but the trapped platoon would be casualties. 3 minutes felt like an eternity. Every heartbeat echoed in her skull. The sounds of battle, the whine of bullets, the distant thuds of mortars, the sharp cries of wounded men, mixed with the pounding rain, creating a symphony of chaos. Mara's focus narrowed to the radio, the coordinates, the grid lines in her head. She whispered a silent vow to each of her squad members. Survive this. A streak of light flashed across the canyon as the first jets roared into view. Mara's voice, quiet but commanding, cut through the static. Strike confirmed. Engage on my mark. Below, enemy positions began to twitch, unaware of the devastation about to rain down. Mara's squad stiffened, gripping their weapons, knowing the moment of judgment had come. The first explosions rocked the canyon. Dust and debris rose like towering pillars. Mara felt the vibrations through the ridge, saw the enemy lines shatter in brilliant orange flashes. Yet even as the strike hit, she remained focused, scanning for stray threats, coordinating with reinforcements, directing her squad to capitalize on the confusion. "Push forward," she shouted, louder now, as if her quiet had transformed into a storm. Her squad surged, moving with precision, clearing the canyon floor, her leadership manifest in every tactical decision. For the first time in her career, Mara realized her quiet voice didn't need volume to command. It needed conviction. By the end of the battle, as smoke drifted through the shattered canyon and the wounded were evacuated, Mara remained on the ridge, her chest heaving, hands trembling from adrenaline. Her squad surrounded her, gratitude and awe evident on every face. Today, they had witnessed what she had known all along. Quiet courage could call in thunder louder than any shout. The night fell like a heavy curtain, shrouding the ridge in near-total darkness. Mara's squad was exhausted, mud-streaked, soaked from hours of rain, but their task was far from over. Intelligence had reported another enemy unit maneuvering to flank the ridge from the north. Mara knew they couldn't hold without additional fire support, and she was the only one trained to coordinate the strike. She knelt beside Private Jensen, checking his wound. "You're good to move, but stay low," she murmured. Her voice was soft, a sharp contrast to the storm that had just struck below, but it carried the authority that kept him steady. "Lieutenant," Sergeant Lin approached, his face grim. "We've got movement. North Ridge, 30 meters out. They're advancing fast." Mara scanned the darkness with her night vision goggles. Through the green haze, she could see the silhouettes of the enemy approaching, rifles ready, crawling over wet rocks and broken terrain. Time was running short. Alpha 1, request immediate strike on northern approach. Coordinates, grid Foxtrot 9er, Delta 2. Precision only. Avoid friendly casualties. Static filled the headset. Then, copy, Lieutenant. Strike in 90 seconds. Mara clenched her jaw. 90 seconds to calculate, coordinate, and survive. She moved silently among her squad, positioning them to maximize cover, while keeping firing lanes open. Every step was deliberate, every breath measured. The enemy advanced, unaware of the strike about to hit. Mara's mind raced. One wrong calculation, and the northern ridge could become a death trap instead of a defensive advantage. She adjusted her coordinates, factoring in wind, rainfall, and visibility. Then, a sharp whistle of incoming rounds cut through the air. Mara ducked instinctively behind a boulder, peering out to see a sniper round ricochet nearby. The enemy had spotted her squad's position. "Steady," she muttered under her breath. Her squad looked to her, their eyes reflecting fear, but also trust. Mara exhaled slowly, steadying her shaking hands, then keyed her radio. "Mark for strike. Fire in 30 seconds." Explosions erupted to the north as jets screamed overhead. Mara felt the ridge shudder under the blast, rocks and mud raining down. Enemy combatants screamed, scattered, some thrown off the cliff edges by the sheer force. The chaos allowed her squad to reposition, gaining critical ground. "Move. Cover the left flank," she ordered, her quiet voice now a commanding instrument of authority. Even the sound of her voice cutting through the storm seemed to push the enemy back. Mara moved with precision, checking every corner, every crevice, ensuring her squad maintained control of the ridge. She was aware of every movement, every flash of light from tracer fire, every cry for help. When the strike ended and the dust settled, Mara's squad had held the ridge against overwhelming odds. Her quiet voice had not only called in the thunder, it had guided them through it, commanding respect not through volume, but through unwavering presence and skill. As dawn broke over the rain-soaked ridge, Mara finally allowed herself a moment to breathe. She had survived the storm, protected her squad, and once again proven that courage and leadership were not measured in decibels, but in decisive action. The quiet one had spoken, and the battlefield had listened. The ridge was quiet now, deceptively calm after the chaos of the night. Mara Voss leaned against the cold stone, her night vision goggles hanging around her neck, and wiped the mud from her face. Her squad moved cautiously, scanning the shadows for signs of movement. But Mara knew better than to trust the lull. Enemy forces were regrouping, and a counterattack was inevitable. Her calm crackled to life. It was the forward platoon she had coordinated with last night. "Lieutenant Voss, we've been hit hard. Supply lines cut. We're holding, but it's only a matter of time." Mara's stomach tightened. She had expected this, but hearing it confirmed made the danger real. She pressed her lips together and exhaled, calming the racing of her heart. "Copy, platoon. Stay where you are, conserve ammo. I'll call in air support again. Hold your positions," she instructed. Her squad exchanged worried glances. Mara noticed Private Jensen wincing as he shifted his wounded leg. Sergeant Lin crouched beside him, muttering reassurances. But even the seasoned sergeant seemed on edge. Mara had to act fast. Any hesitation could cost lives. She scanned the ridge with binoculars. The enemy had been clever. They set up decoys and traps along the northern approach. Mara could see glints of motion among the rocks, likely snipers waiting to catch any squad that advanced. She tightened her grip on her rifle, taking mental notes of every hiding spot. Everyone listen up. We're not moving blindly. We advance only on my signal. Stay low, watch for tripwires and mines, she instructed. Her squad nodded, trusting her judgment implicitly. Mara had learned over the years that quiet determination often inspired more loyalty than loud orders ever could. Today, that trust would be tested. Suddenly, a sharp whistle of a distant rifle echoed across the ridge. Mara ducked instinctively, pulling her squad down with her. A tracer round seared past, embedding itself in the boulder where she had just been. They know we're here, she muttered, scanning the surrounding terrain. Her mind raced. They were outnumbered, exposed, and the enemy had the high ground on several flanking points. She keyed the radio. Alpha 1, strike on northern ridge, immediate. Precision only. Friendly positions marked. Static answered her. Then the calm, professional voice of the controller. Coordinates confirmed. Strike in 60 seconds. Mara exhaled slowly. 60 seconds to ensure every move her squad made was perfect. She adjusted positions, directing Private Jensen to cover the eastern approach while Lin and 2 others guarded the south. Mara herself moved toward the center of the ridge, radio ready, binoculars scanning every shadow for movement. The first jets appeared as silhouettes against the stormy sky. Mara called out coordinates with precision. She could feel her squad leaning into her commands, their trust giving her strength. Explosions tore through the northern ridge. Rocks shattered, dust and debris filled the air, and enemy soldiers scattered in chaos. Mara used the opening to push forward, signaling her squad with hand gestures. Every step was calculated, every breath synchronized with the distant thunder of the airstrike. But the enemy wasn't finished. From the western flank, a volley of gunfire erupted. Mara cursed under her breath. This was more than a trap. It was a deliberate encirclement. She pressed herself against the boulder, firing controlled bursts to suppress the incoming threat. Her quiet voice, now tense but unwavering, guided her squad through the chaos. Suppressing fire. Move to cover. Lin, flank left. Jensen, cover the center. The squad moved like clockwork, their trust in Mara's decisions keeping them alive. Every shot she called, every movement she directed, minimized casualties and maintained pressure on the enemy. Minutes felt like hours, but finally, the counterattack faltered. The enemy, disoriented and scattered, began to retreat. Mara allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. She had kept the ridge and her squad alive, but the danger was far from over. Her comm crackled again. Another platoon was reporting heavy casualties and requesting immediate support. Mara keyed the mic, her calm but firm tone cutting through the static. Coordinates received. We'll hold the ridge. Prepare for the next strike. As she moved her squad to safer positions, Mara realized something. Leadership wasn't about loud voices or aggression. It was about presence, precision, and the courage to act when others faltered. Tonight, the Quiet One had led them through the storm. The morning mist rolled down the ridge, thick and almost suffocating. Mara's squad moved silently, rifles ready, eyes scanning every shadow. The enemy had retreated during the night, but Mara knew it was only temporary. Intelligence suggested a second, larger force was moving in from the southeast. "Lieutenant, we've spotted movement," Sergeant Lin whispered. Mara raised her binoculars. Through the fog, she could see the shapes of soldiers approaching, cautiously advancing toward the ridge. They were too many for a direct engagement. Mara needed to delay them until air support arrived. She crouched beside Jensen, checking his wound. "We hold them here," she said softly. "No one moves without my signal." The squad nodded, a mix of fear and determination in their eyes. Mara's quiet voice carried authority, directing action without raising panic. Mara scanned the ridge for the best defensive points. She assigned positions to each squad member, ensuring overlapping fields of fire. Every rock, every dip in the terrain, every shadow could be a potential sniper or ambush point. The enemy advanced steadily, unaware that Mara had set up traps along the ridge, makeshift obstacles, controlled fields of fire, and kill zones designed to maximize delay without endangering her squad. Suddenly, a flare lit up the fog from the valley below. Mara recognized the signal. Friendly air support was inbound. Her heart raced, but she stayed focused, directing her squad with precise hand signals. "Hold positions. Wait for my mark," she whispered. Moments later, the roar of jets filled the sky. Mara keyed her radio, giving coordinates for a precise strike on the approaching enemy. Explosions erupted in the mist, throwing the attackers into disarray. Her squad surged, moving with coordinated precision, covering each other as they pushed forward. Mara felt every heartbeat, every breath, every moment suspended in tense anticipation. She was aware of the fog, the threat from unseen snipers, and the lives depending on her judgment. The enemy began to retreat under the devastating airstrike, but Mara knew they would regroup. She pressed on, leading her squad through the fog, every decision calculated, every order deliberate. By the time the smoke cleared, Mara's squad had held the ridge again. She allowed herself a brief smile, knowing that her quiet voice had orchestrated another victory. Leadership, she realized, was not about shouting commands. It was about seeing the battlefield clearly, acting decisively, and inspiring others to trust in your decisions, even in silence. As dawn broke over the ridge, Mara looked out at the valley below. The mist lingered, but the ridge was theirs. For now. The ridge had quieted, but Mara knew the silence was temporary. Her squad was low on supplies. Ammo, food, and even water were scarce after 2 nights of relentless fighting. Yet every one of them moved with a precision born of trust in Mara's calm leadership. "Lieutenant, east flank is exposed," whispered Private Jensen, his hand trembling as he adjusted his rifle strap. Mara squinted through her binoculars. The mist was thick, reducing visibility to barely 100 meters. She could see movement, shadows blending with the fog, but she couldn't tell how many there were. Her stomach tightened. The enemy was approaching faster than intelligence had predicted. She pressed the mic on her radio. "Alpha 1, coordinates for suppression fire on Eastern Ridge. Precision only. Confirmed friendly positions." Static answered her. Seconds later, the whump of distant explosions rattled the ridge. Mara exhaled, then barked low, precise orders. "Lynn, cover Jensen. He's our Eastern watch. Everyone else, adjust positions. Keep low and conserve ammo. Wait for the signal before engaging." The squad moved like clockwork, each soldier trusting her judgment without hesitation. Mara didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her calm, deliberate tone was enough to orchestrate their actions. Suddenly, a tracer round streaked past Mara's shoulder, embedding in the boulder behind her. She ducked instinctively, heart hammering, and realized the enemy had sent snipers closer than expected. The ridge was under a 3-sided encirclement. Enemy snipers, upper left. Suppressing fire now. Mara shouted, coordinating with 2 members of her squad who could cover the approach. Bullets ricocheted off rocks, kicking up dust and shards that cut through the thick morning fog. Mara fired controlled bursts, keeping the advancing snipers pinned down while directing her squad's movements. Minutes dragged like hours. Each breath, each heartbeat was an exercise in controlled panic. The enemy was relentless, yet Mara's squad moved as one, guided by her quiet command and precision tactics. Then came the call she'd been waiting for. The unmistakable sound of helicopters overhead. Air support had arrived. She keyed her mic immediately. Coordinates for airstrike confirmed. Marked zones are safe. Wait for visual confirmation. A red flare shot into the sky, signaling friendly positions to the pilots. Mara exhaled, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She watched as the jets appeared, shadowed silhouettes cutting through the fog. The enemy below scattered, their advance halted by the devastating precision of the airstrike. Mara felt a pang of relief, but it was fleeting. She knew the enemy wasn't finished. As the dust settled, movement caught her eye. Reinforcements larger than before were pushing toward the ridge from the southeast. She pressed the mic again, her voice steady. Prepare for defensive engagement. Positions hold. Wait for my mark. Her squad repositioned, ammunition rationed carefully, every member hyper-aware of the enemy's encroaching numbers. Mara knew that victory depended not just on firepower, but on strategy, coordination, and unflinching leadership. A sudden burst of gunfire erupted from the lower ridge, and Mara's heart jumped. Enemy soldiers were using the fog to advance silently, attempting to flank them. She directed her squad with hand signals and whispers, guiding them through the chaos without panic. The hours stretched on, each moment a delicate balance between action and restraint. Mara moved methodically, calculating angles of fire, cover points, and escape routes. Every decision mattered, and every second of hesitation could be fatal. Finally, the reinforcements faltered. Exhaustion, combined with the precision of Mara's leadership and the devastating air support, forced them to retreat. Mara allowed herself a moment to breathe, scanning the ridge. Her squad was battered but intact. They had survived, yet she knew this was only one of many battles ahead. By mid-afternoon, the ridge was eerily quiet again. The fog had begun to lift, revealing the devastation below. Mara moved among her squad, checking on each member. Jensen's wound had worsened, but Lynn and the medic were doing their best under the circumstances. Mara's mind raced. Reinforcements for her squad were still hours away. Supplies were critically low, and the enemy was surely regrouping, planning another assault. She crouched beside Jensen. "Hold on, Private. You've done well. Rest when you can." He nodded weakly, eyes filled with a mix of pain and trust. Mara's presence was their anchor. Her quiet confidence kept them focused and calm, even in the face of overwhelming odds. From the ridge, she observed the valley below. Enemy movement was subtle, but predictable patterns had emerged. Mara mentally mapped out the terrain, noting every rock, tree, and depression that could serve as a cover point. She would need every advantage to hold this position until reinforcements arrived. Lynn checked the eastern approach. "Set up early warning positions and traps if possible," she instructed. Lynn nodded, moving silently. Mara's squad followed her guidance, preparing the ridge for a potential second wave of attacks. Mara herself took a position at the highest point, binoculars sweeping the valley. Hours passed. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching across the terrain. Mara's vigilance never wavered. Every sound, every movement was cataloged and analyzed. Her squad rested only when she allowed, knowing that the slightest lapse could mean death. Suddenly, movement caught her eye, a small group attempting to scale the southern slope. Mara keyed the mic. "Air support, mark southern ridge for strike. Do not engage until confirmation." The jets responded within minutes. Mara directed the coordinates, marking enemy positions with flares. Explosions rocked the slope, scattering the attackers and forcing them into retreat. Her squad moved swiftly, securing the ridge and taking stock of casualties. Exhaustion was visible on every face, but the fire of determination burned brightly. Mara's leadership had kept them alive, and her strategic foresight had turned the tide yet again. As dusk approached, Mara allowed herself a moment to reflect. Leadership wasn't about heroics or bravado. It was about presence, precision, and the courage to act when others hesitated. Her quiet voice had guided them through the fog of chaos and fire, and tonight it would guide them again if needed. Night fell, bringing with it an eerie calm. The ridge was quiet, but Mara knew better than to trust silence. She had seen the enemy regroup, and she understood the deadly precision of night attacks. Her squad was exhausted, every body screaming for rest, yet she pushed them to stay alert. Positions hold. Stay low, stay quiet, Mara whispered, scanning the terrain with night vision goggles. The enemy's thermal signatures flickered faintly through the trees below, proving her instincts correct. They were moving under the cover of darkness. Mara crouched beside Jensen, who was barely able to keep his rifle steady. "Keep your focus. We've got this," she reassured him, her voice steady, almost serene. Despite the chaos, there was an unspoken trust in her tone. The squad followed her lead, hearts pounding but minds clear. A sudden rustle, too synchronized to be random, made Mara snap her head toward the sound. Silhouettes of enemy combatants emerged from the tree-line, shadows moving swiftly toward the ridge. "Engage on my mark," she ordered, and the squad responded with disciplined precision, opening controlled fire to slow the approach. Tracer rounds streaked through the fog, creating a deadly lattice of light. The enemy faltered but adapted quickly, pushing forward with grenades and suppressive fire. Mara's heart raced, but her hands were steady. She coordinated her squad with subtle hand signals, repositioning them while keeping maximum fire on the enemy's advance. Then came the subtle signal she had been waiting for, the faint glow of flares from the airstrike team. Mara keyed her mic. "Confirm target zones. Airstrike in 3, 2, 1. Explosions tore through the enemy ranks below, throwing dirt and debris into the cold night air. Mara's squad pressed the advantage, pushing forward to reclaim ground and secure positions. Every step was measured, every shot deliberate. Hours passed like minutes. Mara moved tirelessly among her squad, checking wounds, redistributing ammunition, and offering quiet words of encouragement. Her presence was magnetic, giving each soldier strength beyond what they thought possible. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the assault slowed. The enemy began to withdraw under the relentless pressure of Mara's strategy and the overwhelming air support. Exhaustion settled heavily on her squad, but there was a sense of accomplishment. Mara allowed herself a brief moment to look up at the stars. She thought of home, of quiet nights far from gunfire and chaos, but quickly pushed the thought aside. Duty came first. Her quiet voice had called in the thunder, and the ridge was still theirs. The first light of dawn broke over the horizon, painting the ridge in shades of gold and red. Mara surveyed the battlefield, noting the scattered remnants of the enemy's forces retreating into the valley. Her squad, though battered and weary, had survived the night intact. She walked among them, checking on every soldier, ensuring they were accounted for. Jensen was stabilized, Lynn had minor injuries, and every member of the squad looked to her with a mixture of exhaustion and admiration. Mara's mind was already planning for the next steps, securing supply lines, calling in reinforcements, and establishing a defensive perimeter. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. Leadership wasn't about glory. It was about the lives entrusted to you, the decisions made under pressure, and the courage to act when others hesitated. Her quiet voice had guided her squad through the storm, and now it had led them to safety. The rescue helicopters arrived, lifting the wounded to safety. Mara coordinated their extraction with the same precision and calm that had defined her every action. She watched as her squad climbed aboard, ensuring no one was left behind. Finally, as the last soldier was evacuated, Mara allowed herself a moment to exhale. The ridge was silent once more, the echoes of battle fading into memory. She looked out over the valley, knowing that each sunrise brought new challenges, but also the promise of resilience, courage, and survival. Her quiet voice had called in the thunder, and today it had saved lives. Mara knew there would be more battles ahead, but she also knew that with courage, strategy, and unwavering resolve, they could face whatever came next. She straightened her shoulders, ready to lead again. The ridge was hers, the squad was hers, and her quiet voice would always be heard when it mattered most.